Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere a little more recent, but no less grim. Forget the glossy Hollywood images of heroic soldiers marching in slow motion to a soundtrack. We're talking about something that was sticky, sweaty, ugly, and laced with a needle. This is what life was actually like for an American soldier caught in the chaos of Vietnam, with heroin whispering in his ear, and the jungle waiting to kill him in 100 different ways. Before you get too comfortable, remember to like the video and subscribe only if you really enjoy this kind of thing, because honestly, not everyone can stomach the details. And if you want, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, and whether it's day or night where you are. I always find it interesting to see people tuning in from all over, sharing this strange little corner of history together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that background hum, and let's slip into this story slowly. You've just woken up in the late 1960s, and congratulations, you've been drafted into one of the dirtiest wars in American history. The good news, you're breathing. The bad news, you're in the middle of Vietnam, where the air is thick enough to drink. The insects eat better than you do, and heroin is about to become your closest companion. Your bed is a canvas cot strung together like an afterthought, creaking under your weight and soaked through with a mix of sweat, mildew, and the permanent scent of damp jungle rot. The mosquitoes never sleep. They hover above your skin, dive bombing every inch of exposed flesh, humming in your ears like a never-ending alarm clock. You swat, you scratch, and it doesn't matter, because you're already covered in bites that swell into angry welts. The humidity glues your shirt to your body before you even sit up, and you can feel the sweat rolling down your spine like the jungle is personally mocking you. The walls around you are nothing more than canvas stretched over poles, offering no real protection. Rain leaks through. The ground is soft mud that seeps into your boots, and every sound outside is either a lizard the size of a small dog, or something that actually wants you dead. You don't even get a moment of silence. Helicopters thump in the distance, rifles clatter. Someone coughs like they've been smoking since birth. And somewhere nearby, another guy is already lighting up, not a cigarette, but something stronger. The smell of heroin mixes with sweat and bug spray, a chemical cocktail that means today will go down the same way yesterday did, in a blur. There's no easing into the day. The first thing that hits you is the heat. It isn't gentle. It's suffocating, thick, and sticky. Breathing feels like dragging air through a wet rag, and the sun isn't even fully up yet. The second thing that hits you is the exhaustion that never leaves. It doesn't matter if you actually slept, or just stared at the canvas ceiling all night, listening to jungle noises and wondering if you'll make it home. You're always tired, but you're never allowed to stop. You sit up, pull on your damp boots, and already your socks feel like sponges. Somewhere out there, someone's yelling orders, and you know what comes next. Another day of slogging through mud, carrying a rifle that feels heavier by the hour, pretending you're alert, when all you want is another hit to make it stop hurting. And that's where it begins. Not with heroism, not with glory, but with sweat, bugs, fear, and a craving that keeps growing stronger with every sunrise. Welcome to Vietnam. You open your eyes and immediately regret it. The air around you is so thick it feels like you've inhaled a warm, wet towel. There's no breeze, no relief, only the suffocating weight of Vietnam pressing against your lungs, like the jungle itself is trying to strangle you. The sound hits next. Cicadas screaming like broken alarm clocks. Distant artillery pounding a rhythm you wish you could ignore. And the low hum of helicopters circling somewhere out there in the mist. Sleep wasn't sleep. It was just lying on a rotting cot, half dreaming, half panicking, waiting for morning to show up and remind you that you're not going anywhere. Your cot is sagging canvas, stretched over a metal frame that creaks every time you move. The fabric is permanently stained with sweat, mildew, and things you'd rather not think about. The pillow, if you can call it that, is a lumpy sack that smells like damp canvas or an other soldier's bad decisions. Sheets don't exist here. Comfort doesn't either. You're stuck with whatever army-issued joke they handed you before you flew into this hellhole. The bugs didn't care about your rank, your orders, or your will to live. They fed on you all night long, leaving behind swollen red welts that itch so badly you've already scratched a few open. Every surface around you is damp. The floor is damp, your boots are damp. Even your skin is permanently damp. It's not just sweat, it's the kind of moisture that seeps in from the air itself, as if the jungle has found a way to crawl under your skin and make a home there. Your socks are soggy, your shirt sticks to your back, and you know within 5 minutes of standing up, you'll be drenched again anyway. You blink and squint toward the entrance of the tent. Canvas walls flap gently in the humid air, streaked with mud, sweat, and whatever got tracked in yesterday. Outside, the world is nothing but green. Thick, choking vegetation. Trees dripping with condensation. And a constant haze that makes everything feel claustrophobic. It's a different planet. One where the rules you knew back home don't apply. Back in the States, the morning meant eggs, maybe toast, a shower, a commute. Here it means insects in your boots, mud in your food, and the constant reminder that someone out there wants you dead. There's no alarm clock. Instead you're woken up by shouting sergeants, by the clatter of rifles, by someone coughing up a lung 3 bunks over. The jungle itself screams at you, a relentless background track of buzzing, chirping and croaking. Even silence doesn't exist here. Every second, something is moving, watching, crawling. And you're not even outside yet. You sit up, swing your legs over the edge of the cot, and your feet hit the mud. Not a wooden floor, not tile, just cold, wet, sticky earth that squelches between your toes if you're unlucky enough not to be wearing socks. You glance at your boots and wonder if the scorpions got there first. It happens. Guys have been stung before they even made it out of the tent. So you shake them, slam them against the ground, pray nothing crawls out, and then force your swollen, blistered feet inside. The leather is cracked, stiff, and permanently damp. The smell is a mix of mildew, jungle rot, and every drop of sweat that's ever soaked through your socks. You lace them up anyway, because you don't have a choice. There's no privacy. You woke up inches away from other bodies, men shifting, groaning, scratching, muttering. Everyone is dirty, everyone stinks, and everyone pretends not to notice. There are no walls separating you, no curtains, no real space. Just a mass of bodies thrown together in the same suffocating tent, trying to survive another day. It's communal misery, and you're stuck in it whether you like it or not. You step outside, and the air slaps you in the face. It's heavy, wet, and full of things you can't identify. Some smells are familiar. Burning fuel, cigarette smoke, stale sweat. But others are unique to this place. Rotten vegetation, stagnant water, animal carcasses, and something sweet that makes your stomach turn. You've been here long enough to know that sweet smell doesn't mean flowers. It means death. Hidden somewhere out there in the jungle, baking in the sun. The ground is mud, always mud. Brown, sticky and clinging to everything. Your boots sink into it with every step, and you can already feel the weight building as it cakes around the soles. It gets in your socks, in your pants, sometimes even in your food. Mud is everywhere. It never dries, never disappears, never gives you a break. You could dig your own grave here without even trying. Just stand still long enough, and the mud will swallow you whole. Somewhere nearby, a guy is lighting up. Not just a cigarette. You know the smell. Sweet, chemical, unmistakable. Heroin. It's early, but time doesn't matter here. There's no day or night, just shifts of light and dark. He leans against the tent pole, eyes half shut, already gone before the day even starts. And you understand it. Because the truth is, it's not just the war that's killing you. It's the waiting. The endless hours of sweating, marching, cleaning rifles, swatting bugs, and pretending you're still sane. Your stomach growls, but you know breakfast isn't coming the way you want it. No bacon, no toast, no coffee steaming in a clean mug. What you get instead is instant coffee powder dumped into lukewarm water and a tin of something the military has the nerve to call food. It tastes like salt, cardboard, and regret. Sometimes you choke it down. Sometimes you don't bother. Hunger is easier than eating something that tastes like it's been stored in a warehouse since the Korean War. You sit on a wooden crate, sip the bitter sludge of army coffee, and try not to think too hard. Because thinking means remembering where you are, and remembering means feeling the fear crawl up your spine. Fear that today might be the day you step on the wrong patch of dirt. The day someone hidden in the trees takes a shot. The day you don't get back to this tent at all. The heroin starts to make sense. It's not about getting high. It's about turning down the volume on the terror long enough to function. But you're not there yet. Right now, you're still sober, still sweating, still aware of every mosquito bite, every ache in your legs, every drop of sweat dripping down your neck. You hear laughter somewhere behind you, but it's not happy. Nothing here is ever happy. It's nervous, sharp, edged with a kind of tension that never goes away. Men laugh to keep from screaming. They joke because the alternative is crying. You look at the jungle. The trees are dense, thick, dripping with vines and moss. You can't see more than a few feet in, and that's the point. Every shadow could be hiding something. Every rustle could be wind, or it could be a trap. The jungle doesn't want you here. The people hiding in it definitely don't want you here. And yet, here you are, in boots that don't fit, with a rifle that feels heavier every day, waiting for orders you don't understand. This is the welcome you get. Not parades, not music, not fanfare. Just mud, sweat, bugs, fear, and the smell of someone already chasing a vein before the sun is even up. This is your new normal. And whether you like it or not, you're going to live it until you either make it home or disappear into the jungle like so many others. You wake up, but it doesn't feel like waking up. It feels like resurfacing from a swamp you never wanted to swim in. Your eyes stick together, crusted with sweat and grime, and the first thing you register isn't light or sound, but heat. Heat that doesn't just sit on your skin, but crawls inside you, clogs your lungs, makes every breath feel like inhaling through a wet rag. The sun isn't even at full strength yet, but the air already presses down like a weight, heavy and unmoving, turning your body into a furnace. Your shirt is plastered to you, soaked through before you've even moved. Yeah, the cot beneath you reeks like sour laundry left in a gym bag for months. The canvas forever damp and speckled with mould that creeps up the seams. You don't want to shift, because you know what happens when you do. The second you roll over, there it is. A fresh wave of mosquitoes, whining around your ears, stabbing into your arms, your neck, anywhere the thin blanket failed to cover. They never stop. You could drown yourself in repellent, and it wouldn't matter. They'd find the 1 square inch of skin you missed, bite through it, and leave behind welts the size of coins. You scratch without thinking, fingernails digging into swollen bites until you break skin. The itch is maddening, the kind that burns and pulses until you're half crazed. You slap at your arm, at your leg, at your neck, and your palm comes away bloody with the smeared remains of another mosquito, already replaced by 10 more hovering just out of reach. You're not just a soldier. You're breakfast, lunch, and dinner for an entire airborne army of insects. The air inside the tent is stagnant, thick with the smell of men who haven't been dry in weeks. Sweat, mildew, unwashed socks, a faint trace of fuel, and beneath it all, the sour undertone of vomit that someone didn't quite clean up last night. You roll onto your back and close your eyes again, but that's a mistake. The buzzing is louder when you're still. The jungle doesn't quiet down just because you want 5 more minutes. Cicadas screech like rusty hinges, frogs croak in deep guttural tones, and somewhere close, something larger shifts in the grass. Then comes the hangover. Not from whiskey, not from beer, but from the cocktail of army-issued cigarettes, cheap local alcohol, and for some, heroin laced with whatever cut the dealer felt like using. Your head pounds like a mortar shell detonating just behind your eyes. Your mouth is dry, but not dry in the normal way. It's sticky, coated, like you spent the night chewing sand. You reach for the canteen by your cot, but you already know it's useless. The water inside tastes like metal, chlorine, and the faint promise of dysentery. You take a sip anyway. The liquid is warm, almost hot, like it's been sitting out in the sun all night. It slides down your throat without refreshing anything, just adding to the sour taste that lingers on your tongue. You swallow, grimace, and immediately wish you hadn't. Your stomach turns in protest, churning with whatever garbage you shoved into it yesterday. A tin of rations, maybe, or half a stale candy bar from home. It doesn't matter. Food never sits right here. It either runs straight through you, or refuses to move at all, leaving you doubled over and cursing your own insides. Your temples throb, a steady pulse that matches the distant thump of helicopter blades. You can't tell if the sound is real, or if your skull is just playing tricks on you. Someone nearby groans, a long, guttural sound, like they're half dead already. You don't bother looking. You know what you'll see. Another soldier sprawled across a cot, eyes half shut, skin slick with sweat, mumbling nonsense into the air. Some of them are sick. Some are strung out. Some are just too tired to keep pretending they're okay. You sit up slowly, and the tent seems to tilt. The ground sways, the canvas walls breathe in and out, and for a moment you think you're going to fall. You steady yourself with both hands, elbows locked, trying not to vomit. The taste is already in your mouth, bitter and sharp, but you force it down. You can't afford to lose the little food you've got in your system. Not when you're expected to march for miles in a few hours, carrying a rifle that weighs as much as a sack of cement. Your vision clears enough to take in the room. Men shifting, stretching, rubbing their eyes. Some already lighting cigarettes, sucking down smoke like it's oxygen. The paper crinkles, the match flares, and the air fills with another layer of haze that makes it even harder to breathe. A few tents down, you hear someone retching into a bucket. The sound is wet, violent, and goes on far too long. No one reacts. No one even glances up. Sickness is part of the routine here. If it's not malaria, it's dysentery. If it's not that, it's withdrawal. You get used to it, or at least you pretend to. The heat grows heavier as the sun climbs higher. There's no gradual shift, no easing into the day. 1 minute it's bearable, the next it's unbearable. The kind of suffocating heat that makes sweat bead on your skin faster than it can evaporate. Your clothes never dry. They cling to you, damp and sticky, rubbing raw spots on your shoulders, under your arms, between your thighs. You could wring a bucket's worth of sweat from your shirt and pants by mid-morning, and you'd still be soaked again by lunch. The bugs thrive in it. Mosquitoes, gnats, flies the size of coins. They swarm every open surface, buzzing in your ears, crawling across your face, diving straight for your eyes, your nostrils, your mouth. You swat constantly, but it doesn't matter. The jungle has more bugs than you'll ever have energy to fight. And then there are the leeches. Not the big ones you notice, but the tiny ones that find their way into your boots, your socks, your underwear. You don't feel them until they're fat with your blood, swollen and slippery, falling off with a sickening plop when they've had enough. You grab a cigarette from the crumpled pack in your pocket. Lighting it is tricky with your hands shaking, but eventually the end glows red, and you take a long drag. The smoke burns, but at least it covers the other smells for a moment. The stench of rot, of bodies that haven't seen soap in weeks, of canvas soaked in mildew, of stale sweat baked into every piece of fabric you own. It's a relief, even if it only lasts a few seconds. Outside, the light is blinding. You step out of the tent and immediately feel the heat slam into you harder. The sun is a spotlight glaring down on the camp, making every surface shimmer. The dirt path is already turning to mud, where men tracked water from their canteens, their boots sinking with each step. The air hums with insects, their sound so constant it fades into the background, until you notice the silence that follows when a helicopter cuts through the sky overhead. Your head is pounding again. Every sound seems sharper, more painful. The clang of a mess kit, the bark of an order, the metallic scrape of rifles being cleaned. You wince, grind your teeth, and drag on the cigarette, trying to dull the edges. The hangover sits heavy in your stomach, twisting with each movement. You need food, but the thought of choking down army rations makes you gag. Grease, salt, beans in a tin, meat that tastes like cardboard. Eating feels like a punishment, not a reward. Some of the men are already leaning against crates, eyes half closed, waiting for someone to pass around the real cure. Little foil packets, rubber tubes, syringes that have been used too many times. The ritual is quick, quiet, almost casual. A belt, a vein, a sigh, and then nothing. Their faces relax, their shoulders slump, their breathing evens out. The heat doesn't matter anymore. The bugs don't matter. The war doesn't matter. For a few hours, they're somewhere else entirely. You're not there yet. Not today. But you feel the temptation creeping in, stronger with every throb in your head, every bite on your skin, every drop of sweat sliding down your back. the jungle doesn't fight fair. It doesn't just attack your body. It goes after your mind day after day until you'll do anything for a break. And so you stand there, cigarette burning between your fingers, stomach growling, head splitting, sweat soaking through everything you own, and you know this is just the beginning of the day. You try to convince yourself that sleep is possible here, but the truth hits you every night. Your bunk isn't a bed, it's a trap. A sagging strip of canvas stretched between two metal poles, barely wide enough to hold your body. It sags in the middle like a hammock designed by someone who hated you personally. Every shift of weight makes it groan, the metal squealing like a dying animal. And you know if it collapses, there's no backup. You'll just be on the dirt floor, which is already half swamp. The first problem isn't the heat, though it's always there. It's the bugs. The mosquitoes don't just hover above you like they're waiting for permission. They dive in with military precision, finding every patch of exposed skin, every gap in your shirt, every fold in your blanket. You cover your face, and they go for your ankles. You tuck in your shirt, and they slip under your collar. You scratch at your arms, at your neck, at your legs until you can feel the sting of broken skin under your fingernails. The itching never stops. You lie there, eyes wide open in the dark, slapping at shadows, swearing under your breath, and still they find you. The net that was supposed to help doesn't. You've strung it carefully, tucked it under your mattress like you were taught, but somehow they still get in. They always get in. One small tear, one missed corner, and the whole thing turns into a cage that traps you inside with your attackers. You hear the whining buzz inside the net, a sound that makes your skin crawl, and you know the night is already lost. Some of the guys give up entirely, draping the nets half-heartedly over the bunks, swearing that they don't work anyway. Others just coat themselves in repellent so thick their skin gleams in the dim light, but even that only slows the inevitable. You shift and try to get comfortable, but there is no comfort. The cot smells like damp canvas and sweat ground in from dozens of nights. The blanket is always wet, not from rain or spilled water, but from the air itself. The jungle humidity seeps into everything, saturating fabric, soaking wood, and making every surface feel sticky and live. You press your face into the pillow and recoil instantly. It smells like mildew, like the inside of a forgotten locker, like every bad decision you've ever made condensed into one piece of cloth. You flip it over, hoping for relief, but the other side is the same. Sleep doesn't come quickly, and when it doesn't stay. You drift in and out, hovering between shallow dreams and sudden jolts awake. A mosquito whines by your ear, and your hand shoots up instinctively. You slap yourself more often than you slap them. The welts bloom in clusters, raised red bumps that burn and itch until you can't tell where one ends and the next begins. Some of the bites swell so large they throb like bruises, pulsing with your heartbeat, a constant reminder that your body is just another blood bank in the middle of the jungle. The others around you are no quieter. Someone snores, a harsh, guttural sound that cuts through the buzz of insects and the distant rumble of artillery. Someone else mumbles in their sleep, half-formed words tumbling out of a mouth that won't rest even when unconscious. Then there's the guy thrashing on his cot, sweating through withdrawal, muttering for a fix even in his dreams. The tent is never silent. It's a symphony of misery, each bunk contributing its own part. The slap of hands against skin, the groan of cots shifting under restless bodies, the sighs of men who've given up on sleep altogether. Every once in a while, you hear the sharp smack of someone finally catching one. A small victory, followed by silence as the mosquito's crushed body leaves a dark streak on the skin. But the victory lasts seconds. The swarm never ends. They're relentless, drawn not just to your sweat and breath, but to the sheer mass of humanity crammed into one space. 30 bodies radiating heat, pumping out carbon dioxide, bleeding into socks and scratching at wounds. It's paradise for them. Your misery is their feast. And it's not just mosquitoes. The jungle doesn't limit itself to one type of torment. Ants crawl across the ground and up the legs of cots, tiny black rivers of soldiers marching toward any scrap of food left behind. Roaches scuttle through the cracks, bold enough to crawl across your chest in the middle of the night. Rats sometimes skitter under the bunks, gnawing on boots, on rations, on anything they can sink their teeth into. You hear them squeak and scratch in the dark, a reminder that you're not alone even when everyone else is asleep. You curl onto your side, pull the damp blanket up to your chin, and stare at the canvas ceiling. Sweat drips down your temple, pools in the hollow of your collarbone, and soaks into the mattress beneath you. The air feels thicker now, as if the tent itself is exhaling heat back onto you. You take shallow breaths, trying not to choke on the combined stench of mildew, smoke, and the faint chemical tang of insect spray. Somewhere outside, a gecko lets out its strange, high-pitched call. Somewhere further away, a machine gun chatters, then falls silent. You try not to think about what that means. You try not to think at all. But your body refuses to let you rest. Every itch demands attention. Every buzz jolts you awake. Every drip of sweat reminds you that you'll never be dry again. The bunk is supposed to be a place of rest. But here, it's just another battlefield. One where you're losing every night. By dawn, you're not rested. You're bitten, sore, drenched, and already exhausted before the day begins. The bugs have won again, and you're just another carcass they've picked clean for the night. You drag yourself out of the cot, scratching at fresh welts that have already started swelling across your arms and neck. And your first thought isn't relief that the night is over. It's dread that the day is starting. The camp is already alive with the sounds of men shuffling, coughing, muttering curses into the sticky air. Somewhere close, the clatter of metal on metal reminds you that breakfast is waiting. Not the kind of breakfast you dreamed of back home, not eggs frying in a pan, toast popping from a toaster, bacon curling and crisping in its own grease. No. Here, breakfast is a punishment disguised as a meal, and you're about to take your turn choking it down. The mess area is a collection of battered tables, dented trays, and men who look as though they haven't slept in months because they haven't. There's no cheer, no chatter, no clinking of silverware against porcelain. Just the dull scrape of spoons against tins, the occasional cough into a fist, and the constant whining buzz of flies that dive at everything edible like they've been invited. The air smells like stale grease, burning fuel, and bodies that haven't seen a shower in weeks. You sit down on a crate or on the edge of whatever surface you can find, and the meal that greets you is exactly what you expected. Coffee that tastes like burned dirt, and rations that could double as construction material. The coffee comes first. It's not really coffee, not in the way you remember it. No steam rising from a mug, no rich aroma filling the room. Just a powder stirred into tepid water, the grains never fully dissolving, leaving gritty clumps that swirl at the bottom of the tin cup. You take a sip, and it's bitter, sharp, metallic. The kind of taste that makes your tongue curl back and your stomach tighten, but you force it down anyway, because you need the illusion of energy. It doesn't wake you up so much as it reminds you you're alive, which is questionable motivation at best. The rations are worse. Today it's canned meat, if that's what you want to call it. A pale, rubbery slab suspended in gelatinous fat, trembling in the humid air like it's alive. You poke it with your spoon, and it resists, bouncing slightly before giving way to a texture somewhere between sponge and shoe leather. You shovel a piece into your mouth, chew until your jaw aches, and swallow hard, chasing it with a gulp of bitter coffee to wash down the taste. It doesn't help. The flavour lingers, greasy and metallic, coating the back of your throat until you feel like gagging. Sometimes they hand out powdered eggs. Scrambled, supposedly. In reality, it's a yellow mush that looks like someone scraped paint chips into a bowl and stirred until lumpy. The texture is chalky, the flavour non-existent, except for the faint tang of chemicals. You eat it anyway because the alternative is starting the day on an empty stomach, and out here that's worse. You can't fight hunger when you're already fighting the jungle. The bread, if it shows up at all, is hard enough to chip a tooth. You gnaw at it, jaw muscles burning, and pretend it's something worth the effort. Spread, forget it. Butter melts before it even makes it to the table, and jam is a luxury no one's seen in months. Sometimes you get peanut butter, but it comes in small tins that smell rancid before you've even peeled the lid. You spread it anyway, smear it on the rock-hard bread, and choke it down because food isn't about taste here. It's about survival. The flies love it more than you do. They swarm the tables, landing on the bread, the eggs, the meat, your hands, your face. You swat at them constantly, but there are too many. They dive into your coffee, skim across the surface of your food, and leave behind a trail of filth that you try not to think about. Some of the guys don't even bother swatting anymore. They just eat around the insects, too tired to care. After all, the bugs are eating too, and at least someone's enjoying the meal. The smell of gunpowder seeps into everything. Someone is cleaning their rifle at the table next to you, and the sharp metallic tang of oil and spent rounds mixes with the stench of canned meat and instant coffee until you can't tell the difference. The war doesn't wait for you to finish breakfast. It's always here, humming in the background, leaking into your food, your drink, your skin. You swallow another mouthful of greasy meat and metallic coffee, and all you taste is gunfire. Conversations are muted, clipped, never about home or family. Just short complaints about the food, about the heat, about the bugs. Someone mutters about the coffee being strong enough to dissolve paint. Someone else jokes that the canned meat could patch a bullet hole better than the medics. The laughter is dry, sharp, and doesn't last. No one has the energy for real jokes. By the time you've finished, you don't feel nourished. You feel heavier, sluggish, your stomach rolling in protest. The food doesn't energize you. It just sits inside you. A lump of grease and starch that will weigh you down all day. You push the empty tin away, wipe your mouth on the back of your hand, and light a cigarette. The smoke fills your lungs, bitter and sharp, but at least it replaces the aftertaste of canned fat and powdered eggs for a moment. You stand, stretch, and already the sweat is pouring down your back, soaking your shirt, pooling in the waistband of your pants. Breakfast hasn't given you strength. It's just reminded you that the day has started and you will need every ounce of whatever you manage to swallow to carry you through the mud, the heat, and the endless miles ahead. The mess kit clatters back onto the table. Another cigarette burns low between your fingers, and in the distance, the sound of gunfire cracks through the morning air. Breakfast is over, and reality is waiting. You look down at what you've been given to wear, and realise it isn't clothing in the way you used to understand the word. It's more like a punishment stitched into fabric. The jungle fatigues they issued you are olive drab, shapeless, and already stiff with sweat and dirt, even though you've barely been here long enough to memorise the layout of camp. They don't fit. They never fit. Too tight in the wrong places, sagging in others, and every seam rubs against your skin like sandpaper. The humidity has soaked them through again, clinging to you as if the shirt and pants want to fuse permanently to your body. You shift your shoulders, and the fabric bites into your armpits. You walk 5 steps, and the coarse stitching at your inner thighs is already raising red welts that will turn raw by noon. The smell hits you before the discomfort does. Damp canvas, unwashed fabric, and the unmistakable tang of mildew that's been building since the first rain you marched through weeks ago. Nothing ever dries here. You hang your uniform out, pray for a breeze, and instead the jungle gives you more moisture, more sticky air that seeps into the fibres until they practically drip. Put it on in the morning, and it's cold and clammy against your skin. By afternoon it's hot, suffocating, and heavy with sweat. There's no middle ground, just misery in different temperatures. Your boots aren't any better. Stiff leather that was never broken in properly, soaked daily in mud and swamp water until they have grown soft and sour. The insides are slick, your socks never truly dry, and every step grinds your skin raw. Blisters form, pop, and bleed until you're walking on sores that never heal. You shake your boots out every morning, praying there isn't a leech waiting inside, but sometimes there is, and it's already fat with your blood by the time you notice. The socks themselves are a joke. Thin cotton that sags and bunches, rubbing your heels until they're nothing but raw patches covered with makeshift bandages that peel away in the humidity. You try to wash the uniform, but it's pointless. The river water stinks. The soap is cheap army-issue powder that barely lavers, and by the time you've scrubbed and wrung out the shirt, it's stained darker than before. The patches of mud don't come out, the sweat stains spread, and the smell lingers no matter how hard you work at it. You wear it again the next day, damp, heavy, and still filthy. You'll keep wearing it until the fabric rots away, or you do. The bugs love it. Ants crawl up your pant legs, gnats cling to the damp patches on your back, and mosquitoes pierce straight through the thin fabric like it isn't even there. You slap at them constantly, leaving bloody smears on your sleeves, until the uniform itself becomes streaked with evidence of the nightly battles you keep losing. The lice are worse, tiny, invisible until the itching drives you mad, burrowing into the seams, hiding in the folds, and waiting for you to put the uniform back on so they can keep feeding. You scratch until your skin breaks, little red trails of blood staining the collar and cuffs, and still they come back. The helmet adds another layer of discomfort. Heavy steel strapped to your head, trapping heat, sweat pooling against your scalp until it drips down the sides of your face. Take it off, and the sun scorches your skin instantly. Leave it on, and you risk passing out from the heat. Either way, you lose. The straps rub your jaw raw, the padding inside reeks of old sweat, and the constant pressure makes your head throb until you can't tell if it's the helmet or the hangover that's going to split your skull in half. Every piece of gear digs into you. The webbing straps cut into your shoulders, your chest, your hips, leaving deep red grooves that never heal. The ammunition pouches slap against your sides with every step, bruising your ribs, while the canteen bangs against your leg hard enough to leave marks. The rifle strap digs into your collarbone until it feels like it's carving its way into the bone itself. Everything is heavy, damp, and unrelenting. You're carrying half your body weight in gear, and none of it fits the way it should. The worst part is knowing that this isn't temporary. Back home, when your clothes were uncomfortable, you could change. You could peel them off, throw them in the wash, put on something soft, clean, dry. Here there's no changing. You have one uniform, one set of boots, one set of socks if you're lucky. You wear it until it rots, until the seams give out, until the colour fades from green to a muddy brown-grey that matches the filth around you. By then, you don't even notice the discomfort anymore. The chafing, the blisters, the constant stink. It all becomes background noise, another layer of misery on top of everything else. You watch the other men in camp and see the same thing. Everyone is itching, scratching, pulling at collars, shifting uncomfortably in damp pants. Everyone smells the same sour, mouldy way, a blend of sweat and mildew that hangs in the air like a permanent fog. No one bothers complaining. What's the point? There's no supply closet filled with fresh uniforms waiting. There's just this, the same damp misery every day, until either the war ends or you do. And still, you keep putting it on every morning. The ritual doesn't change. Shake out the boots, curse at the socks, pull on the damp shirt, cinch the belt, strap the helmet. The fabric sticks, the straps dig, the boots rub raw. By the time you finish getting dressed, you're already exhausted. You haven't even stepped outside the tent yet, and the uniform has already reminded you that comfort is something you left behind the second you set foot in Vietnam. You step out of camp, and the ground gives way beneath you before the day has even begun. Mud, endless mud, sucking at your boots like the jungle itself is trying to keep you from leaving. Every step is a battle. You lift one foot and the other sinks deeper. The sound is a wet, sucking slurp, the kind you can feel in your bones, as if the earth is laughing at your attempt to walk across it. The weight of your gear pulls you down, the rifle slaps against your side, the canteen bangs into your thigh, and already your shoulders burn from the straps digging into them. You've been marching for 5 minutes, and your body feels like it's been 5 hours. The mud is alive. It's not just dirt and water. It's slick with rot, with animal droppings, with whatever has been decomposing here since the last rain. You don't think about what's mixed into it, because if you do, you'll gag. But you can smell it. A sour, earthy stench that clings to your boots and seeps up into your nose until you can taste it at the back of your throat. Every splash leaves brown streaks across your pants, your hands, your rifle. The mud is inescapable. It isn't just on the ground. It's in your life, in your food, in your sleep. You'll scrape it off tonight, and tomorrow it will be back, thicker and deeper. Then there are the leeches. They don't announce themselves. You don't feel the bite. You just notice the itching first, then the burning, then the slow trickle of blood running down your ankle. By the time you stop to check, the leech is already fat, black and glistening, writhing as it sucks greedily at your flesh. You peel it off, cursing, and your fingers come away slick with your own blood. Another one is inside your sock. Another has worked its way up your leg. They're relentless. Tiny worms with teeth, perfectly designed to make sure you never get a moment of relief. Every stream you cross, every puddle you step into, you're inviting another invasion. Some guys don't even bother pulling them off anymore. They let the leeches eat until they're full and fall away on their own, leaving behind ragged wounds that bleed for hours. The blood soaks into socks, squishes in boots, and leaves you hobbling until the pain dulls into a steady throb. You wonder which is worse, pulling them off and watching your skin tear open, or letting them have their fill and hoping they drop without taking a chunk of you with them. Either way you're bleeding. Either way you're walking with open wounds through mud that's already teeming with infection. The march stretches on forever. Trees rise on either side, thick and close, their branches heavy with vines that slap against your helmet and tangle around your rifle. The jungle floor isn't flat. It's a mess of roots, holes, and hidden traps. Every step could be your last if you plant your foot in the wrong place. Your eyes scan constantly, not because you want to, but because you have to. The enemy doesn't fight fair here. They don't line up in neat rows. They wait in the trees, in the brush, in the ground itself, watching you slog through the mud like livestock. Your body screams at you. The straps of your pack carve deeper into your shoulders. Your lower back throbs with every step. Your thighs burn, your calves ache, and blisters on your feet rub against damp socks until they're raw and bleeding again. Sweat pours down your face, drips into your eyes, stings as it mixes with salt and dirt. You can't wipe it away without smearing more mud across your skin, so you blink through the blur and keep moving. There's no stopping. The column moves forward whether you can or not, and falling behind means more than humiliation. It means danger. The sounds never stop. The slap of boots in mud, the clang of gear, the hiss of insects that seem louder with every step. Your own breathing comes in ragged gasps, shallow and sharp, like your lungs are shrinking with the weight of the air. The humidity presses down harder now, thick and wet, every inhale like dragging in steam. It feels like drowning without water. You glance at the man ahead of you and see the same misery etched into his face, the same slump in his shoulders, the same slow drag of his boots. No one talks, no one jokes. The only words are curses muttered under breath when someone stumbles or goes down into the muck. And regret. It creeps in quietly, just like the leeches. At first it's a passing thought, something you push away because it won't help. But the longer you march, the louder it gets. Regret for not dodging the draft. Regret for believing the recruiter's promises. Regret for thinking this would be some kind of adventure, a test of manhood instead of a daily grind of mud, pain, and endless sweat. You regret every decision that led you here, carrying this weight, bleeding from open sores, praying you make it one more mile without collapsing. The march isn't just physical, it's a slow erosion of willpower. Every step demands a choice. Keep going or stop. But stopping isn't an option. So you keep going, dragging your body through mud that wants to swallow you, through leeches that bleed you dry, through regret that gnaws at your mind. Each footfall is another small surrender, another admission that this is your life now, and no matter how much you hate it, you'll do it again tomorrow. Because here, In the middle of Vietnam, there's no escape. Just mud, leeches, and the constant reminder that you regret everything, but you don't have the luxury of quitting. You sit in the shade of whatever passes for shade here, a thin patch of leaves straining against the sun that never lets up. Your body aches from the march. Your shoulders burn from the straps that cut into them all morning, and your socks squish with every shift of your boots. The mud has dried into a crust across your pants, cracking with each movement, flaking off just to reveal another layer of damp underneath. You're exhausted, your skin itches with bites and sweat, and your lungs feel heavy from the air that hangs like a wet blanket over everything. And so you reach for the one thing that makes sense in this place: a cigarette. The pack is soft and bent, the paper already damp around the edges. You slide one out carefully, tap it against your palm like you've seen in movies, and stick it between your lips. It tastes faintly of mildew before it's even lit, but you don't care. You strike the lighter, the flame flickers in the humid air, and you drag the smoke deep into your lungs. It burns, sharp and acrid, scraping your throat raw. You cough, your eyes water, but the relief follows almost instantly. The nicotine hits, your chest loosens, your hands stop shaking quite so much. For the first time today, the world blurs at the edges in a way that feels almost manageable. Around you, the others are doing the same. Dozens of glowing tips dot the shade, men hunched over, exhaling streams of grey into the jungle air. The smell is thick, layered over sweat and mildew, but you welcome it. It drowns out the stench of rot, if only for a moment. Cigarettes become currency here. You trade them, you hoard them, you smoke them down to the filter, because every drag is a small rebellion against the misery pressing in on you from every direction. But the cigarette is just the opening act. You've noticed it already. The way some of the men disappear after the march, slipping off behind the tents, returning with eyes half-lidded and movements too slow to be natural. The way conversations drop to whispers when certain names are mentioned. The way someone always has that look, calm, detached, a little too at ease for this hell. It doesn't take long to realise what's happening. The jungle has its own pharmacy, and heroin is the favourite prescription. The first time you see it up close, you can't look away. A guy sitting cross-legged in the dirt, rubber tubing cinched tight around his arm, a needle glinting in the patchy sunlight. His hands don't shake. He's too practised for that. He finds the vein quickly, pushes the plunger, and then it's like watching someone melt. His shoulders slump, his eyes close halfway, and the tension drains out of him like air from a punctured tyre. He leans back, a faint smile tugging at his lips, and for the first time since you've known him, he doesn't look afraid, he doesn't look angry, he doesn't even look alive, not really, he just looks gone. At first you're disgusted. You tell yourself you'll never do it. You're here to fight, to survive, not to turn yourself into another body slumped in the dirt with a vacant stare. But the thought lingers. The whisper creeps in. You watch him. Watch how he doesn't flinch when mosquitoes land on his skin, doesn't twitch when the sun beats down, doesn't care that the world is still turning. You wonder what it feels like to stop caring, even for a few hours. The cigarette burns down to the filter in your fingers, and you light another without thinking. The smoke doesn't work as well this time. The relief is shorter, the burn sharper, the edges of misery creeping back in faster. Your legs still ache, Your skin still crawls. Your mind still races. You know, one cigarette will turn into two, two into three, but there'll never be enough. Not when the man beside you is floating somewhere you can't reach with tobacco alone. The whispers grow louder as the days pass. Heroin isn't hidden here. It's everywhere, cheap and plentiful, flooding the camps like the rain that never stops falling. Some of the officers look the other way. Some of them are using too. You start to notice the signs. The glazed eyes, the slurred speech, the slow shuffle of bodies trying to pass as alert. You see it in men cleaning their rifles, in men writing letters home, in men who can't even keep their heads upright at chow. And still the whisper calls, not in words, not in promises, but in the ache in your body, the burn in your lungs, the buzzing in your ears. It calls in the memory of the man slumped in the dirt, smiling faintly while the world crumbled around him. It calls every time you drag smoke into your chest and know it won't be enough. It calls when you close your eyes and see the same faces, the same mud, the same trees, day after day after day. So you take another drag of the cigarette, stare at the glowing tip, and wonder how long it will be before you give in. You run your tongue along your teeth, and it feels like dragging it over gravel. The grit never goes away. Days of instant coffee, canned meat, and cigarettes have left a permanent film coating everything in your mouth. There's no toothbrush waiting in your pack, no neat little line of toothpaste on the sink, because there's no sink either. The closest thing to hygiene out here is swishing a mouthful of warm, metallic canteen water and spitting it into the mud, which doesn't clean anything. It just shifts the taste around. Let you pretend for half a second you've done something. Your gums ache constantly, raw and swollen from the steady grind of rations that scrape more than they nourish. Every bite of gritty rice, every mouthful of rubbery bread wears your teeth down like they're part of the battlefield. The stench creeps in slowly. At first it's just you noticing your own breath, a sour tang that lingers after the coffee or the cigarettes. Then it becomes impossible to ignore. You talk and you taste it, bouncing back from your own throat, stale and rotten. The guy next to you is no better. None of them are. Everyone breathes out the same mix. Tobacco smoke, spoiled food, and whatever is rotting between their molars. The air in the tent grows thick with it, layered over sweat and mildew, until you can't tell where one smell ends and the next begins. And then there's the jungle itself. It doesn't smell like the clean green forests you knew back home. It smells like death in slow motion. Rotting plants, stagnant water, animal carcasses hidden under layers of vines. The sweetness is the worst part. Sickly sweet, clinging to your nostrils. The unmistakable scent of something decomposing nearby. Sometimes it's a bird, sometimes it's a boar, sometimes it's one of your own left too long in the heat. You try not to think about that last one. You try to breathe shallow, but it doesn't matter. The smell seeps into your clothes, your hair, your skin. It becomes part of you. When the jungle rot mixes with your own stench, the result is unbearable. You open your mouth, and the air carries the combined weight of decay and disease. You smell it on others too. The way every word they speak is laced with halitosis so thick, you wonder how they don't choke on it. No one says anything, because there's nothing to say. You can't shame a man for bad breath, when the only options are chewing on a stick or spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. Sometimes you bite down wrong, and the pain shoots through your jaw like lightning. A tooth gone soft, a cavity gnawing its way deeper with every meal. You know what the solution is? Pliers, a buddy with a steady hand, and no anaesthesia. You've heard the stories, men yanking teeth out in the field, holding a bloody molar in one hand while spitting blood into the mud. No dentist is coming. No Novocaine. Just you and whatever courage you can scrape together between rations. You light another cigarette, even though it makes everything worse. The smoke dries your mouth, sharpens the rot, turns your tongue into a slab of ash. But it's better than nothing. Better than letting the jungle stench in unfiltered. Better than tasting your own gums bleeding. You breathe deep, blow the smoke out slow, and for a moment the only thing you notice is the haze in your lungs. It doesn't last. It never does. The rot is always waiting. You pass by the latrine and it's somehow worse. The smell of human waste spilling into the air joins the mix, thick and sour, swirling into the cocktail you already carry in your mouth. You gag, spit into the mud, but the taste lingers. You realise that it isn't just the jungle or the camp. It's you. It's inside you now. Every bite of rotten rations, every cigarette, every sip of swamp-flavoured water, it's all part of your breath, and it's not leaving until you do. You close your mouth and stop talking because silence stinks less. The whistle blows, and before you can even curse, you're on your feet with your rifle in hand, stumbling into formation. The swamp doesn't care that you barely slept, doesn't care that your uniform is glued to your skin with sweat, doesn't care that your boots are already heavy with yesterday's mud. Orders are barked, voices cut through the air sharp and merciless, and you move because hesitation isn't allowed. Your body aches from the march. Your head throbs from cigarettes and cheap coffee, but the drill has begun, and the swamp is eager to swallow you whole. The ground underfoot isn't ground at all. It's muck, soft and treacherous, sucking at your boots with every step, like 1,000 invisible hands dragging you down. You push forward, knees high, boots sloshing, mud spraying up your legs and splattering into your face. The stench rises with every stomp, the sour stink of stagnant water mixed with rot that's been fermenting since long before you got here. Frogs croak somewhere beneath the surface, snakes slip away unseen, and every step you take could land on something alive, something sharp, or something meant to blow you apart. Your rifle feels heavier here, the strap digging into your shoulder, the metal slick with sweat and grime. You grip it tighter, afraid it'll slip from your hands into the swamp. The drill sergeant yells for speed, for precision, for alertness, as though those words mean anything in a place where the air itself wants you dead. You try to focus, to move in a step, but the swamp grabs at your ankles, at your knees, pulling you off balance. Every stumble earns a curse. Every fall earns laughter from the ones still upright. You drag yourself up, mud clinging to your arms, your chest, your helmet, as though the swamp is marking you as its next victim. The mosquitoes don't stop. They never do. They swarm your face, dive for your eyes, your ears, your nostrils. You can't swat them, not while holding the rifle, not while trying to keep pace, so you grit your teeth and let them feed. The buzzing drowns out the orders, the high-pitched whine so constant you start to wonder if it's inside your head. Sweat pours down your back, stinging the open bites, dripping into the scratches carved into your skin by jungle thorns. You drop to your stomach, on command, straight into the muck. The swamp doesn't welcome you gently. It splashes across your chest, fills your helmet, seeps into your collar. The water is warm, thick, alive with tiny movements you don't want to think about. Your arms sink to the elbow, your legs disappear halfway into the sludge, and for a moment you panic because it feels like the swamp isn't going to let you back up. You claw forward, dragging your body through the sludge as your rifle scrapes through the water beside you. The taste of the swamp hits your tongue, bitter and foul, coating your mouth with filth you'll never spit out completely. Gunfire cracks in the distance, blanks for the drill, but loud enough to rattle your nerves. You know it's practice, but your body doesn't. Your heart pounds, your hands tremble, adrenaline surges through your veins. You slam into the mud harder, dragging yourself lower, chest scraping against rocks hidden beneath the water, knees gouged open by roots. The pain mixes with the filth until you can't tell what's blood and what's swamp water. You crawl forward, every inch a struggle, your gear weighing you down like an anchor. The pouches dig into your ribs, the straps cut into your shoulders, the helmet slides forward into your eyes. You keep moving because the whistle is still blowing, because the sergeant is still screaming, because stopping isn't an option. The swamp laughs with every splash, every slip, every gasp for breath, when you choke on the air that tastes of rot. The drill ends when the sergeant decides you've had enough, but the swamp doesn't let go. You drag yourself upright, mud dripping from your arms, your chest, your face. Your uniform clings tighter than ever, heavy and slimy, and your boots squelch with each step. The smell follows you, sour and rotten, soaked into your skin, impossible to wash away. Your rifle is coated in filth, the barrel clogged with mud, the strap slick with swamp water. You wipe it down mechanically, but you know it'll never be clean again. Your body is shaking, your muscles screaming, your breath ragged. It was only a drill. No bullets, no ambush, no enemy in the trees, just practice. But the swamp doesn't care about drills. It doesn't care about orders or whistles or commands. It wants you gone, wants you under the surface with the rest of the rot, and it almost had you this time. Tomorrow it will try again, and the day after, and the day after that. Out here, even practice feels like dying. You see it happen enough times before you finally understand why so many guys slip down that path. The routine is always the same. The march, the drills, the mud, the leeches, the cigarettes that burn too fast and never last long enough. Then the silence afterward. The quiet minutes when no one has orders yet. And you're left sitting with the weight of your own body pressing down harder than your gear ever did. That's when the packets appear. Little squares wrapped in foil or plastic, passed from hand to hand like candy back home. A rubber tube, a spoon, a lighter, a needle that's been used more times than you want to think about. It doesn't happen in secret. Not really. Everyone knows. Some men huddle behind the tent, some sit openly under the trees, some don't even bother to hide at all. The officers who should care are either looking the other way or nodding off themselves. Heroin doesn't sneak into the camp. It walks right in and sets up a chair. You watch one of the older guys in your unit go through the ritual. He's calm, almost graceful, like he's tying his boots or cleaning his rifle. The belt goes around his arm, pulled tight until the veins rise under his skin. He taps them with the needle, finds the spot quick, and pushes down on the plunger with a sigh so heavy it sounds like it's been waiting weeks to escape. His eyes close halfway, his shoulders slump, and suddenly he's not here anymore. The jungle fades for him. The heat, the bugs, the fear. They don't matter. He leans back against the wall of the tent with a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. And for once, he looks like a man at peace. That's the part that hooks you. Not the needle, not the ritual, but that look. That rare moment of softness in a place where everything is sharp, loud, filthy, and cruel. You want that. You want a pause button for your brain. A moment where the mud isn't sucking at your boots. The mosquitoes aren't drilling holes into your skin. And the constant paranoia of being ambushed doesn't grind your nerves down to dust. You tell yourself cigarettes are enough. You light one, drag it deep, cough until your ribs ache, and convince yourself the haze it leaves behind is enough to blur the edges. But the cigarette only lasts a few minutes. The heroin lasts hours. And when you watch the others float, it's impossible not to imagine what it feels like to stop fighting everything. Your body, your mind, this war, for just one moment. The first time you give in, it doesn't feel real. The packet is small, folded neatly like it belongs in a lunchbox, not in a war zone. Your hands shake as you go through the motions, the rubber tube biting into your arm, the needle hovering like a threat and a promise all at once. You wince at the sting, and then the warmth spreads. Slow at first, then rushing, flooding your chest, your arms, your legs. The air feels softer, lighter, like it finally let go of the chokehold it's had on you since you got here. Your heart stops racing. Your head stops pounding. Your body, which has been screaming at you since the day you arrived, finally shuts up. For the first time in months, you don't feel like you're in Vietnam. You don't feel like you're anywhere at all. The mud, the leeches, the rotting jungle, none of it matters. You're floating above it, untouchable, unbothered. The heat is still there, but it doesn't burn. The bites are still itching, but they don't bother you. The gunfire in the distance is just another sound, no different than the cicadas or the frogs. For a few hours the war loses its teeth. Around you the others are drifting too. Some lie back with their eyes closed, arms limp at their sides, breathing slow and even. Some mumble, words slurred, half-formed sentences about nothing at all. A few laugh, low and soft, like they've remembered something from a life before this one. The camp smells like sweat, mildew, and the faint chemical tang of cooked heroin. It's a strange kind of calm, the only kind you'll ever get here. You know it won't last. You know when it wears off, the mud will still be waiting, the jungle will still reek of rot, and the drills will still break your back. You know your body will start to crave it faster than you can keep up, that the shakes will come, the sweats, the hollow pit in your stomach that nothing else can fill. But in this moment, none of that matters. Right now, you've finally found the one thing stronger than the war, the escape. And once you've tasted it, the whisper never leaves you. You learn quickly that friendship here isn't the kind of thing you left behind at home. It isn't backyard barbecues or high school buddies cracking jokes over a six-pack. It's quieter, grimmer, a survival pact disguised as camaraderie. You share cigarettes, you share rations, sometimes you share silence. Out here, silence is worth more than words. You don't need to ask if the guy next to you is tired, hungry, sick, or scared. You already know, because you are too. The only difference is how well you hide it. In the evenings, when the drills are over and the rifles are cleaned, the men sit in small clusters. Someone tells a joke, dry, cruel, funny, only because it cuts so close to home. Someone else sings a line of a song before giving up halfway through. Letters from home are passed around, creased and smudged from being read 100 times, until the paper feels like it'll fall apart. You laugh together sometimes, but it's the laughter of people who know the punchline is always death. Camaraderie here isn't joy, it's a shield. You lean on each other because no one else is going to hold you up. But under that thin layer of brotherhood, the paranoia gnaws. You don't say it out loud, but everyone knows. Every shadow in the jungle could hide an ambush. Every villager could be carrying information. Every path could be mined. The paranoia doesn't stop at the tree line either. It's in the camp, in the way you glance sideways at each other, wondering who's really here and who's already gone inside their own head. The drugs make it worse. You see a man nodding off against a crate, eyes half closed, and you wonder if he'd even notice if the enemy walked straight through the perimeter. You wonder if you'll be the one left standing when it matters, or if you'll be just as useless when the moment comes. Everyone says they'll never touch it, at least once. You've said it yourself. You swore up and down you wouldn't be that guy with a needle in your arm, staring blankly into the dirt while the world burns around you. But the jungle changes people. The heat, the insects, the endless ache, it chips away at you until the promises don't matter anymore. Sooner or later, most of the men find their way into the habit, some openly, some in secret. You start to notice who disappears after meals, who comes back with that faraway look, who seems too calm in a place where calm doesn't exist. You don't ask questions, because they don't ask you when you start doing the same. It becomes an unspoken agreement. Everyone's got their own way of surviving, and no one calls it weakness because if they did, the whole camp would collapse under the weight of hypocrisy. You share gear, you share cigarettes, and sometimes you share needles. No one likes to admit it, but it happens. The jungle doesn't care about clean. It doesn't care about infection. It just takes what it can, and you let it. Because the alternative is lying awake at night, listening to the sound of your own teeth grinding while you wait for dawn to drag you through another day. Paranoia lingers even in those moments of escape. You see the way some men tuck their stash deep into boots or sew it into the lining of their packs, glancing over their shoulders before slipping away to get their fix. Others act casual, leaning against a tent pole with a cigarette, but you can see the glassy sheen in their eyes. You don't mention it. They don't mention yours. The silence is part of the pact. And yet, even in this mess, the bond is real. You know the man beside you will hand over his last cigarette if you're desperate. You know he'll drag you out of the mud if you collapse. You know he'll cover you when the gunfire starts, even if his hands are still shaking from withdrawal. That's the contradiction of it all. The camaraderie is strong, maybe stronger than anything you've ever known, but it's built on top of secrets and fear. You're closer to these men than anyone in your life, and at the same time, you're never sure who's fully here and who's already floating somewhere else. So you sit together in the humid night, the jungle screaming its endless course around you, and you share what little comfort there is: smoke, silence, and the knowledge that everyone's fighting the same losing battle in their own way. You stare down at the canteen in your hand and already know what you're about to drink is going to make you sick. It doesn't matter how many purification tablets you drop in, how long you let the chlorine stink rise out of it, or how tightly you screw on the cap. The water in Vietnam is a gamble, and you lose more often than you win. The taste is the first insult. Warm, metallic, with a chemical bite that burns the back of your throat, It coats your tongue like you've just licked the inside of a rusted pipe. You force it down anyway because there's no choice. The air is so hot and wet, it wrings the sweat out of you like a sponge. And if you don't drink, you collapse. Dehydration will kill you faster than the enemy ever will. But the water doesn't refresh you. It just sloshes heavy in your stomach. And with every swallow, you know you're swallowing a dozen different invisible enemies. Dysentery is the word no one says out loud, but everyone lives with. It waits for you in every sip, in every river crossing, in every careless splash of swamp water across your lips. One night you're fine, the next morning you're doubled over in the mud, your stomach cramping so hard you can't breathe. The pain rolls through you, like barbed wire unravelling inside your guts. And when it hits, you don't care about the war, you don't care about drills, you don't care about anything except finding a place to squat before your body gives up entirely. The latrines are a nightmare, holes in the ground buzzing with flies, the stench rising so thick it clings to your clothes long after you leave. You crouch there sweating, shaking, feeling your insides pour out of you in a stream that never ends. Sometimes it's water, sometimes it's worse. The smell is unbearable, sour and sharp, and it mixes with a constant reek of rot from the jungle until you think you'll choke on it. You wipe yourself with whatever you have, scraps of paper, leaves, sometimes nothing at all, and stumble back to your cot weaker than before, your body drained and your stomach still twisting. Some men can't get up again. They lie there, curled on their sides, too weak to march, too weak to hold a rifle. Their eyes sink, their skin turns grey, and you see how quickly a man can be undone by something as simple as water. There's no glory in it, no medal. Just a slow, humiliating slide into dehydration, fever and death. You try to be careful. You boil the water when you can, you drop the tablets, you avoid the rivers when you know they're crawling with disease. But the jungle is cleverer than you. Sweat drips down your face, stings your lips, and you lick it without thinking, only to realise it tastes of whatever filth you walked through last. Rain falls into your open mouth, cool for a second before you remember it's sliding off the leaves that shelter snakes, birds and carcasses. Even the rain isn't clean, nothing here is. The worst part is the constant thirst. You never feel satisfied. You drink and still your mouth is dry, your tongue thick, your lips cracked. Your body burns the water faster than you can take it in, and every swallow feels like a bargain you can't win. Do you risk sickness now, or collapse later? Either way, the jungle gets what it wants, a weaker version of you stumbling through the mud, barely able to keep your weapon steady. You hear men joke about it sometimes, dark humour between gulps. Don't trust the water, it'll kill you quicker than Charlie. The laughter is thin, forced, but it's the only way to keep from screaming about how your body is betraying you from the inside out. You sip, you gag, you swallow again. Because no matter how foul, no matter how dangerous, the water is the only thing keeping you moving. And so every day you raise the canteen to your lips, smell the chlorine, taste the rust, and remind yourself that survival here isn't about avoiding misery. It's about choosing which kind you can stand. You sit on the ground with the tin in your lap, staring at it like it's an enemy. The label is faded, the metal dented from being rattled around in some warehouse for years, and you already know it isn't going to taste like food. It isn't even fresh. These sea rations were packed before you got here, maybe before you were even drafted, and they smell like it. You pry the lid open with your knife, the blade slipping because the tin is slick with condensation, and the stench hits you before you even see what's inside. Sea rations are supposed to keep you alive, but most days they feel like they're trying to finish the job the jungle started. You peel back the lid and stare at a grey-brown lump floating in gelatin that jiggles like something out of a horror show. Meatballs in gravy, they call it, except the meat tastes like rubber. The gravy is a salty sludge, and the whole mess is cold before it even reaches your mouth. You chew because you have to, jaw aching with the effort, the flavour metallic and rancid, coating your tongue like motor oil. You chase it down with a gulp of warm canteen water, which doesn't wash it away so much as spread it around your mouth. Other days it's beans and franks, which is exactly what it sounds like. A tin of orange mush, where the beans are chalky and the hot dogs are pale tubes with the texture of soggy cardboard. Or maybe it's ham and lima beans, universally despised, green and pink chunks mashed together in a way that makes grown men gag. The smell alone can turn your stomach. A sour tang that clings to the air long after the can is empty. Soldiers joke about burying the tins instead of eating them, but hunger always wins. The crackers are no better. Hard squares that taste like dust, snapping into shards that scrape your gums. You smear them with a packet of peanut butter if you're lucky, a dry paste that clings to the roof of your mouth until you cough trying to swallow. Sometimes there's cheese spread, which comes out in a congealed lump the colour of mustard and tastes faintly of mildew. You eat it anyway, chewing with your eyes closed, because the alternative is marching on an empty stomach. There's always candy tucked into the kit, a half-hearted attempt to sweeten the deal. A bar of chocolate so old it's turned white with age, chalky and bitter, or hard candy that glues itself to your teeth. For a few seconds, it reminds you of home. Halloween, movie theatres, corner stores. But the illusion dies as soon as the taste mixes with the smell of rot from the jungle around you. The worst part isn't the flavour, it's the sameness. Every meal is the same texture, the same bland saltiness, the same metallic aftertaste. There's no freshness, no crunch, no sweetness that doesn't feel artificial. Just cans, packets, and the occasional stale piece of gum that tastes like rubber dipped in detergent. You shovel it in because you're hungry, not because you want to. You eat quickly, trying not to taste it, trying not to think about the fact that the label probably expired before you were born. Some men trade. Cigarettes for crackers, beans for fruit cocktail, if anyone's lucky enough to have it. The fruit cocktail is the crown jewel, a tiny tin of syrupy chunks that tastes almost real, almost alive. You savour every bite, even the mushy grapes, because it's the closest you'll get to actual food out here. Most of the time, though, there's nothing worth trading. Just piles of tins stacked up like punishment, waiting for the next time your stomach growls. When you're done, the trash piles up. Empty tins scattered in the mud, buzzing with flies, the smell lingering long after you've moved on. The jungle reclaims them eventually, rusting them out, swallowing them into the soil. But while they're fresh, they sit like monuments to the misery of trying to eat in a place where food doesn't exist the way you remember it. So you light a cigarette, choke on the first drag, and tell yourself the taste of smoke is better than the taste of canned ham and lima beans. The jungle never sleeps, and neither do you. Every step feels like a gamble. each breath a reminder that the trees aren't shelter. They're camouflage for someone who knows this place better than you ever will. You walk with your rifle tight in your hands, eyes darting, ears straining against the constant roar of insects and the occasional crack of distant gunfire. The sun filters through the canopy in broken streaks, and every shadow looks like it's about to move. The ambushes are sudden. 1 second you're trudging through mud, sweat dripping down your face, and the next the air is alive with noise. Gunfire explodes from nowhere, echoing through the trees, bullets snapping past your head with a sound like angry bees. You dive to the ground, into muck that soaks through your uniform instantly, and you claw forward on your stomach because standing is a death sentence. Your ears ring, your heart hammers so hard it feels like it might crack your ribs, and you return fire at flashes in the tree line without even seeing who's there. The jungle eats the sound, swallows the smoke, and when it's over, you don't know if you hit anyone or if you just scared ghosts away. Then there are the booby traps. They wait in the dirt, in the grass, under the water. Punji pit lined with sharpened bamboo, coated in filth to guarantee infection. Tripwires strung low where your eyes don't catch them, ready to trigger grenades or mines that will tear a man apart before he even knows he stepped wrong. You walk carefully, scanning the ground, scanning the trees, scanning every step your buddy takes ahead of you, and still men vanish in a blink. One moment they're there, the next there's an explosion, a scream, and nothing left but shredded fabric and blood soaking into the mud. You learn not to trust the earth. You learn not to trust anything. Sleep doesn't bring relief. It brings hallucinations. The heat, the drugs, the constant fear. They twist your brain until you can't separate dream from reality. You wake in the middle of the night, certain someone's moving through the camp. Certain you hear whispers just beyond the trees. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's just your imagination chewing on itself. Men stumble out of their cots, sweating, shaking, convinced they've been ambushed, firing into the dark at nothing. The jungle laughs when you waste bullets on shadows. Even in daylight, the hallucinations creep in. The combination of exhaustion, hunger, and heroin turns the jungle into something alive. Vines curl like snakes even when they aren't. Shadows shift like bodies even when the trees are still. The buzzing of insects drills into your skull until it sounds like voices. You blink and you're not sure if the shape ahead is an enemy soldier or just another tree. Your finger trembles on the trigger because one mistake means death. But so does hesitation. Paranoia becomes the only way to survive. You flinch at every rustle, spin at every sound. You can't trust your own senses anymore, but you can't stop listening to them either. The jungle doesn't give you a choice. It wants you terrified. It wants you twitching. It wants you so tired and strung out that you don't know if you're pulling the trigger at a real enemy or at something your brain invented to keep you awake. And through it all, you march. Through ambushes that strike from nowhere. Through traps that make the ground itself your enemy. Through nights where the line between dream and waking vanishes completely. The jungle doesn't care if you're brave, doesn't care if you're strong. It wants you broken, bleeding, and afraid. And every day it gets a little closer. The hospital tent looks nothing like the word hospital would suggest. There are no clean white sheets, no polished instruments, no gentle voices promising care. It's canvas walls sagging under the humidity, smelling of blood and sweat and iodine that never seem strong enough to cover the stench of infection. The air inside is heavy, thicker than outside somehow, trapped with the groans and coughing of men who didn't move fast enough, or who were unlucky enough to step in the wrong place. You step in, and the heat hits you harder than the sun ever could, cloying and suffocating, carrying with it the metallic tang of blood that never washes away, no matter how much water the medics throw on the floor. Cots are lined up too close together, stained with fluids you don't want to identify, and every one of them holds a body that looks half dead already. Some are wrapped in bandages that leak through with red and brown. Some are missing limbs with makeshift tourniquets digging into swollen flesh. And some just lie there with eyes open, staring at the canvas ceiling like they've already left. Flies buzz around freely, landing on wounds, on mouths, on eyes that can't blink fast enough to keep them away. You hear moans rising and falling like a chorus, broken only by the occasional scream when someone's morphine runs out and the reality of pain crashes back in. The medics move fast, but not with gentleness. They work with hands stained red, snapping gloves on and off when they can, more often not bothering. They jab needles into arms, push morphine into veins, and move on to the next body because there's no time to linger. Morphine isn't luxury here, it's necessity. Men writhe until it hits, then sink back against the cot with a slackness that looks like death but isn't. Their breathing evens, their hands unclench, their eyes glaze over. For some, the relief is the only gift they'll get before the infection wins. But morphine doesn't stay clean. The tent is filled with needles that have been used too many times, shared, dulled, and barely wiped down between patients. The risk of infection is just another line on the list of miseries. You've seen men get a shot to calm their pain, only to spend the next week shaking with fever because the needle carried something worse than the wound ever did. And still, when the pain comes, they beg for it. No one cares about the cost when their body feels like it's on fire. In the corner of the tent, you see a different kind of suffering. Men shaking violently, drenched in sweat, their teeth chattering even though the air is hot enough to suffocate. They're not wounded, they're not sick in the way you first think. They're withdrawing. The heroin that dulled the jungle's misery has been cut off inside these walls, and their bodies rebel in ways more brutal than any bullet wound. Muscles spasm until they curl in on themselves, vomiting until nothing is left but bile, skin crawling as though insects are burrowing underneath. They scream for a hit, for anything to make it stop, but the medics shake their heads or walk away. Morphine is for the wounded, not the addicts, and yet the line between those categories blurs. Some men fake pain just to get a dose. Some beg with stories about phantom aches, clutching at old scars to earn another needle. Some manage to sneak it, slipping syringes into their packs when no one is watching. The tent is filled with moans, not just from torn flesh, but from torn minds, and it's impossible to tell which is worse. The smell inside the tent never leaves you. Blood, sweat, vomit and chemicals all mixed together. A suffocating cloud that sticks to your skin even after you walk out. The sound doesn't leave either. The groans, the coughing, the begging voices of men shaking so hard their cots rattle beneath them. You realise quickly that survival here isn't just about avoiding bullets or mines. It's about avoiding this place, avoiding the tent where dignity dies and everything smells like rot. You grip your rifle tighter when you leave, not because you believe it will protect you, but because you'll do anything to stay out of that canvas prison. Anything. The letters arrive in stacks, dropped off by a clerk who looks just as miserable as you do. And for a brief second, there's a flicker of excitement in the camp. Men crowd around, shouting names, hands reaching out, faces lighting up when an envelope finally lands in their palm. For a moment, you remember what it feels like to wait for the mail back home. The sound of the truck, the thud of envelopes on the kitchen counter, the little jolt of anticipation. Here, it feels almost human again. Almost. You take your letter and stare at it, reluctant to open it. The paper is soft, thin, already damp from the humidity. Your name is written in a hand you know too well. A hand that reminds you of a kitchen table, of a lamp left on late at night, of a world that feels like it belongs to someone else now. You slide your finger under the flap and tear it open carefully, because the paper is fragile and you can't risk ruining it. Inside, there are words from home. Ordinary words, harmless words, but none of them help. Your mother talks about the weather, how the leaves are turning, how the dog is getting older. She mentions the neighbours, the grocery store, the new gas prices. It's supposed to be comforting, but it isn't. It's a reminder that life is moving forward without you, that the world you left behind keeps turning while you're stuck here, sweating in the jungle, swatting at mosquitoes, wondering if tomorrow will be your last. Her words are full of love, but love doesn't stop the heat from suffocating you, or the mud from sucking at your boots. Lovey doesn't pull the leeches off your legs. Sometimes it's a letter from a girlfriend, and those are worse. Promises scrawled across the page, words about waiting forever, about missing you every day. You want to believe them, but you have seen too many men crumble when the second letter comes, the one that says, "I can't do this anymore." You've seen soldiers rip pages into shreds, burn them in the mud, drink themselves numb afterward. You read the words carefully, hunting for hints, wondering if this one will hold out, or if she's already gone, already moving on while you're still stuck here, choking down instant coffee and sea rations that taste like rust. And then there are the letters from friends. Friends who brag about new cars, about jobs, about parties. They talk about music you haven't heard, movies you'll never see, weekends at the lake you'll never get back. They tell you to hang in there, as though those words mean anything while you're ankle deep in mud, listening for the snap of a tripwire. Their lives sound too easy, too clean, too far away, and you hate them for it, even as you fold a letter carefully and slip it back into your pocket. The worst letters are the ones with news. Someone died, someone got sick, someone moved away. You read the words and feel a hollowness open in your chest because there's nothing you can do. You can't go back, you can't help, you can't even grieve properly. You just fold the paper and tuck it into your pack, carrying the weight of it with you into the jungle. Even when the words are kind, they sting. The handwriting, the ink, the paper itself, they all belong to a world you can barely remember. You look at the letters, and they feel like they were written to someone else. Someone cleaner, someone happier, someone who doesn't exist anymore. You're not the boy who left. You're the man who sits in the mud, with sweat dripping down his spine, holding a rifle in one hand and a letter in the other, knowing that neither will save you. You fold the paper, slide it back into the envelope, and put it in your pack with the others. Some men pin them to the inside of the tent, a little shrine to the life they lost. Others rip them up, refusing to carry the weight. You can't decide which is worse, keeping the reminder or destroying it. Either way, the letters don't help. They don't stop the war. They don't cool the air. They don't keep you alive. They just remind you of everything you're missing, and everything you might never get back. So you light another cigarette, blow the smoke into the humid night, and stare at the paper until the ink blurs in the dim light. The jungle roars around you, the camp stirs, and the letter sits heavy in your pocket, carrying a home you can't touch anymore. Faith doesn't arrive here dressed in Sunday clothes. It crawls in dirty barefoot, soaked in sweat, muttering half-remembered prayers between coughs and curses. Out here, in the endless stink of mud and mildew, religion stops being a polished ritual and becomes a desperate habit. Something you whisper under your breath while swatting mosquitoes and pretending you're not scared. Some men clutch rosaries, their beads stained with sweat and dirt. Others carry little crosses around their necks, tucked under their damp uniforms, wood softened and warped from the humidity. A few keep pocket Bibles, the pages curling, ink smearing until the words blur together. They open them at night, squinting under a dim flashlight, mouthing the verses as though speaking them softly enough might trick the jungle into listening. But the truth is, no one here is sure what to believe. The chaplain shows up sometimes, standing in front of a group of men who stare at the mud instead of at him. He talks about strength, about courage, about God's plan, and the words float away like smoke, vanishing into the trees. You listen because you have to, not because you believe it will stop the bullets or keep you from stepping on a mine. Religion here isn't about faith. It's about superstition, about finding anything, no matter how flimsy, that feels like it might give you one more day. Some men invent rituals, a certain way of tying boots, a lucky cigarette smoked before patrol, a charm hidden in a pocket. You see one soldier rub the same coin before every march, his thumb polishing it smooth. Another refuses to eat lima beans from the rations, swearing they bring bad luck. No one laughs. No one dares. When the jungle itself seems alive and hungry for you, you don't mock the little things that give someone the illusion of control. The rain becomes its own strange kind of faith. It falls in sheets, drenching everything, turning the ground into rivers of sludge. It soaks your uniform, fills your boots, slides down your spine in cold trickles. Most days you curse it, but sometimes, when the thirst burns in your throat and your canteen stinks of chlorine and rust, you tilt your head back and let it pour into your mouth. It tastes of leaves, of mud, of whatever has been rotting in the canopy above. But you close your eyes and imagine it's pure. You tell yourself maybe it's holy water, maybe it's washing something off you. The sweat, the sickness, the fear. It's superstition, but it's enough to swallow another mouthful. The jungle has its own religion too. You see it in the villages you pass, in the shrines tucked into trees, in the incense that burns despite the humidity. Small offerings left on stumps, bits of food, sticks of prayer. The locals believe the spirits live here, in the roots, in the rivers, in the mist. And when you see what this place does to men, how it swallows them whole without leaving a trace, you start to wonder if they're right. You start to whisper to the same trees, not caring if you're praying to God, to ghosts, or to nothing at all. You lie in your cot at night, listening to the rain hammer the canvas, and you make promises you know you can't keep. If you get out of here, you'll be better, kinder, cleaner. You'll go to church, You'll sit in the front row. You'll thank God for every breath. But in the daylight, when you're sweating, cursing, lighting another cigarette, those promises dissolve like the paper pages of a pocket Bible left out in the rain. Religion here isn't steady. It bends, it cracks, it warps like everything else in this place. One moment you're whispering Hail Marys into the mud. The next you're swearing that no God worth believing in would leave you here. You cross yourself before patrol, but you light up a joint when you get back. You pray when you're sick, but you beg for heroin when the prayers don't work. Faith and superstition blur until you can't tell which one is keeping you moving forward. And so you keep walking, boots sinking into mud, rosaries rattling, charms tucked away, waiting for another storm to break. When the rain falls, you let it hit your tongue and pretend it's holy water, because believing it is keeps you alive just a little longer. The war measures everything in numbers. Numbers of rounds fired, numbers of patrols walked, numbers of men still standing at the end of the day. But the one number everyone talks about, the one whispered, exaggerated, argued over in the quiet between firefights, is the body count. It isn't strategy. It isn't tactics. It's a scoreboard, a grotesque game where the prize is survival and the reward is nothing at all. You hear officers ask for it constantly, as though the tally will somehow prove the war is being won. How many did you get? Is asked, with the same tone someone back home might use for, how many points did your team score? You give numbers because numbers are expected, not because anyone really knows. In the chaos of the jungle, you can't be sure who fell, who crawled away, who was even there. You see flashes of bodies in the undergrowth, dark shapes tangled in vines, and you report them as kills. Sometimes they're real, sometimes they're shadows. Sometimes it doesn't matter. The count always goes up. The game creeps into your own head. You find yourself counting after firefights, glancing at the others, trying to judge if you've done enough. The paranoia grows. If your numbers are low, will someone think you weren't pulling your weight? If they're too high, will they know you lied? It's a constant balance between fear and pride, between wanting to disappear and needing to prove you exist. And then there's the smell. You can't escape it. The smell of death doesn't just hang in the jungle. It sinks into it, saturates the air until you breathe it in without realizing. It's sweet and sour at once, cloying and heavy, a stench that clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. At first you gag, covering your nose with your sleeve, but after weeks it becomes part of the background, another note in the chorus of rot and mildew. You smell it before you see the bodies. Sometimes it's days old, bloated shapes hidden under branches, swarming with flies. Sometimes it's fresh, steaming in the heat, blood soaking into the mud, so dark it looks like oil. You step past them, over them, sometimes through them, because you have to keep moving. You tell yourself not to look too long, but you always do. Their faces blur into the jungle, mouths open, eyes staring at the canopy as though the trees themselves were the last thing they saw. Sometimes you recognize the uniforms. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's one of your own, and the smell becomes unbearable because it's no longer just death. It's someone you knew, someone who joked with you over cigarettes yesterday. The body count doesn't include those smells, those faces. It doesn't account for the way death lingers in the air long after the shooting stops. The officers scribble down numbers on clipboards, but the jungle keeps its own tally in swarms of flies, in bloated corpses, in the way the air grows heavier with every passing day. You find yourself wondering when you'll stop noticing it. You already don't gag as much as you used to. You already eat with the smell drifting around you. You already light cigarettes while standing a few feet from a body, the smoke mixing with the rot until you can't tell which is worse. The line between living and dead blurs when the stench never leaves you. So you keep walking, rifle heavy in your hands, eyes darting through the trees, pretending the count means something, pretending the smell doesn't follow you everywhere. You know the truth. The jungle doesn't care about numbers. The jungle only cares about taking more. It starts with sweat. Not the usual sweat that soaks your uniform by mid-morning. Not the humidity pouring out of the air and dripping down your spine. This is different. It's cold, clammy, sudden, like your body has decided to betray you in the middle of the patrol. Your hands shake, your knees wobble, and the rifle in your grip feels heavier than it ever has. The others don't notice at first. You look like everyone else, trudging through the mud, eyes darting into the trees. But you know, you can feel it clawing at the edges of your skin, the sickness that comes when the heroin is gone. Your stomach twists in knots, cramping so sharply you have to bite the inside of your cheek to keep from groaning. Every step jars it worse. You want to double over, you want to curl up in the mud, but you can't. The line keeps moving forward, and falling behind isn't an option. The rifle digs into your shoulder, slick with the sweat from your trembling palms, and you cling to it harder, because it's the only thing keeping you upright. The sounds of the jungle get louder, sharper, unbearable. The buzz of insects drills into your ears until you swear you can hear every wing beat. The leaves rustle and you flinch, certain something is moving toward you. The paranoia ramps up with the sickness. Every shadow looks like an ambush. Every gust of wind feels like the start of gunfire. You know your mind isn't right, but you can't stop it. The withdrawal chews at your nerves until you can't tell if the jungle is alive or if it's just your brain cracking apart. Your vision swims. 1 second the trees are still, the next they're bending and twisting, shapes shifting at the corners of your eyes. You blink hard, wipe sweat from your face, but the images don't go away. You think you see someone crouched behind a bush, finger on the trigger, but when you raise your rifle, it's just vines tangled together. The man beside you gives you a look, not angry, just tired, like he knows exactly what's happening because he's been through it too. He doesn't say a word. No one ever does. You keep moving, both of you pretending nothing's wrong. The cramps come harder. Your guts churn until you can't hold it back anymore, and you stumble off the path, crouching in the bushes while the rest of the line trudges forward. You shake, you heave, your body emptying itself in a rush that leaves you weaker than before. The stench is unbearable, but it doesn't matter. Everything smells foul already. The jungle, the sweat, the rot clinging to your uniform. You wipe your mouth, your legs trembling so bad you can barely stand, and you catch up with the others, praying no one noticed. They did. They always do. But no one says anything. Your hands are the worst. They won't stop shaking. The rifle rattles in your grip, the barrel bobbing with every breath. If a firefight started now, you'd be useless. You'd spray bullets blindly, your aim wrecked by tremors you can't control. The thought makes you sweat harder, panic bubbling up, but the craving drowns out even the fear. All you can think about is the next hit, the next packet, the next time the warmth floods your veins and makes the world bearable again. Withdrawal doesn't care that you're in the middle of a war zone. It doesn't care that you're supposed to be alert, steady, ready. It rips you apart anyway, leaving you hollow, weak, shaking in the mud with a rifle you can barely hold. You try to steady your breathing, you try to keep your eyes open, but the sickness gnaws at every corner of you until all that's left is a body that can march and a brain that can scream for relief. The patrol keeps going, you keep going, trembling, sweating, barely holding on. And in the back of your mind, louder than the gunfire you know could come at any second, is the single thought that eats you alive. You'd do anything, anything, for just one more hit. The orders come down like a rumour first. Someone says your tour is up. Someone else laughs like it's a bad joke. And you don't believe it until the paperwork is in your hands. You're going home. Home, whatever that word means now. You pack the same way you've lived. Fast, careless, everything damp and stinking, shoved into a bag that feels heavier than when you arrived. The cot you've been rotting on looks exactly the same as the day you first laid on it, except now the canvas sags deeper, the stains darker, the smell fouler. You glance around the tent one last time and realise you've been breathing the same rot for a year, and part of you already misses it, even as you hate it. The flight out is nothing like the ones that brought you here. No nervous jokes, no wide-eyed kids pretending they're ready for an adventure. Everyone on this plane looks like you, older than their years, eyes sunken, skin pale under the grime. Some slump against the seats, knocked out from exhaustion or a last hit to get them through the ride. Others stare straight ahead, fists clenched in their laps, too wired to rest. The hum of the engines feels wrong. You expect gunfire, explosions, screams. Instead, there's just the steady drone, and you don't trust it. The smell follows you. Even sealed inside the plane, the jungle clings. Sweat, mildew, rotting boots, unwashed bodies. You smell the mud in your clothes, the smoke in your hair, the faint chemical bite of heroin in the air from someone who couldn't wait until they landed. You close your eyes and you're back in the swamp, belly down in the muck, mosquitoes in your ears, gunfire snapping through the trees. The war doesn't let go just because the wheels have left the ground. Some men cry quietly, tears slipping down their faces as they grip letters from home. Some laugh too loudly, hysterical bursts that die as quickly as they start. A few keep whispering prayers, fingers twitching over rosaries, lips moving without sound. No one looks relaxed. Survival doesn't feel real until the wheels touch American soil. And even then, part of you won't believe it. You land and the world is too clean, too bright, too quiet. The air smells wrong. No rot, no gunpowder, no smoke. Just asphalt and grass and food cooking somewhere nearby. It should feel like a miracle, but it doesn't. It feels fake, like a movie set. You wait for the gunfire to start, for someone to jump out of the trees, for the jungle to close in around you again. The silence presses harder than the noise ever did. People smile at you. They shake your hand. They call you a hero. They tell you it's over. But you know better. You can still feel the mud caked on your boots, the weight of the rifle in your hands, the burn of the heroin in your veins. You see the faces of the ones who didn't make it, the ones who are still there, rotting under the canopy. You smell the jungle every time you breathe, thick and sweet and rotten, and it doesn't wash off. It never will. You're alive, but the war didn't end. It just moved inside you, a parasite that eats away at every thought, every dream, every breath. The jungle came home with you. The body count came home with you. The needles, the sweat, the paranoia, they all came home too. You walk off the plane, you step onto clean American soil, but in your head you're still out there, still crouched in the mud, still waiting for the ambush that never ends. You survived Vietnam, but you'll never leave it. So that's the life. A year in the jungle, sweating, scratching, bleeding, nodding off, and marching through mud thick enough to eat you alive. A war measured in body counts, cigarettes, needles, and rations that tasted like rust. A war where every sip of water came with the promise of dysentery, and every sunrise came with the question of whether you'd see the next one. And even if you got lucky, if the bullets missed you, if the traps didn't take your legs, if the heroin didn't hollow you out, what came after wasn't escape. The war followed you home. It stayed in your head, in your lungs, in your teeth, in the smell of your clothes. Vietnam wasn't just a place. It was something that got inside you, and it never left. So you can lie back now, let the noise fade, let your thoughts drift away. You've seen enough for one night. The heat, the bugs, the rot, the needles. They'll still be there tomorrow. The jungle doesn't forget, and neither do you.